Hi everyone, welcome back to part 2 of planting my Serissa in the new custom-made pot by David. In part 1 of the series, I pruned up the tree, cleaned up the root base, and got it ready for repotting. My first task, as always, I'm always out of bonsai soil, so I've got to mix some up. The soil I'll be mixing up today is half perlite and half safety zorb, which is 100% fuller's earth. And they're sifted to remove all the dust and fine particles, so you get a nice airspace between the soil particles, and that allows the roots to grow in between them and get oxygen and be really healthy. So with this soil, if you just use the safety zorb or turfus by itself, the particles tend to stack up on each other and they sort of cement themselves together. I don't know what it is, but they kind of form layers and you don't get the air gaps between the particles. And once a section of soil dries out, it's really hard to rehydrate it. I've even put pots underwater, let them soak for half an hour, then pull them out, and then you dig in the pot and there's still dry areas in the soil. It just doesn't seem to creep in there. So by adding the perlite to the soil, it maintains those particle spaces so it doesn't all fit together like bricks and close up all the air spaces. So the perlite keeps the aeration in the soil. If you use too much perlite, the soil becomes too light, and if the wind comes, it might knock your tree over. You could plant in pure perlite, and I've done it, and it works quite well. But the safety zorb or turfus gives the soil a bit of weight, and I think there's a nice balance between using the two. I've got my soil ready, so now I've got to prepare the pot just by adding a drainage screen in the bottom. I bought a new roll of window screen, so I'll just roll out, cut one big piece for the bottom of the pot. That should do it quite nicely. So I'll clip it about here, just run it across. Out there. Trim it off about here. Like that. So there's my drainage screen in the bottom of the pot. I'll place a base layer of soil in the bottom of the pot. So here I go. Just so the root base has something to sit on, so it's not sitting on the clay bottom of the pot. I'll just kind of spread that out evenly. It's like we're baking brownies or something. Ah, that looks good. Okay, so the pot's all ready. Let's get the tree out of the pot now. Okay, let's do this. So I'll grab the tree by the base, very carefully not to peel off all that flaky bark. I'll just lift up like that. There's a good mat of roots on the bottom. Wow, look at that. And I'll just place it beside here and take the pot away. I have a new pot for something else to grow in now. Kind of cool. I'll place the tree on the turntable. I think that'll make it easier to comb out the roots. Even though it might make kind of an annoying scratching sound, but there we go. Now, I don't know if there's a big screen in the bottom here or not. I'm just having a look. or if it's just a matter of roots. I think there is a big, large oval screen in the bottom. So I'll have to remove that first. I'll show you that. Yeah, there's my nylon down here, my nylon screening. And there's quite a few roots interwound with it. Yeah, some fairly big ones. Wow. Well, I may just have to lift the tree up and peel the nylon screen off. See how that goes. Oh, it smells terrible. That's just a natural smell. It's not root rot or anything. It's just these trees have a horrible smell to them. Wow, there's a lot of roots interwound with this screening. Maybe I'll have to rake away from the top first and then see if I can get that screening out. All right, here I go with the root rake. So the roots on a Serissa are very fine. You can see how fine they are, which means they're very prone to overwatering and underwatering. So you have to be really, really careful with the watering on these trees. Not to have them in too heavy a soil where it retains water, and not too light a soil where it dries out too quickly. So you have to be there. So when it starts to dry out the soil, you've got to water it. Otherwise, if you kill all these fine roots, the tree has to generate new root tips. And, you know, if you let it dry out, then you overwater it and keep it too wet, the tree's not taking up water because you killed off all the root tips. So the water stays really wet, and then it starts rotting the roots even further. So it's kind of like a catch-22 situation where you let the tree dry out, you overcompensate by watering too much, and that just harms the tree even more, and then it just never recovers sometimes. So you've got to be really, really careful with the watering to give it the right amount of water at the right time. So I would recommend, you know, a good free draining soil mix like this and frequent watering and fertilizing. And that's worked well for me. And I've also begun to treat this tree like a temperate tree, giving it a cool rest period in winter, but above freezing. And that seems to keep the tree healthy too. Overwintering these in a warm room is really hard. I found that. You tend to get branch dieback. You get a lot of health problems with the tree. The tree doesn't stay as strong. So last year I kept it cool all winter, and the tree loved it. It stayed healthy. It came out in spring with vigor. So I'm going to continue that. And I think that's the secret for growing Serissas, is really good watering technique and giving that cool rest period in the winter. I think if you don't do those two things, it's hard to keep them healthy, especially long term. And the older these trees get, the more you don't want to lose them. They become, you know, a little better looking every year. So, and even though the roots are, you know, very fine, you can still comb them out without breaking them. They're not fragile. But you do have to be, you know, you can't just be really rough with them. You've got to comb with a light hand, if that's a technique. Don't do any heavy-handed work on them. I'm just kind of very light with the root rake in here. It may look brutal, but it's not. It's I'm being very cautious. And the roosters are agreeing with me 100%. So I can see quite a few roots that need correcting. Roots going the wrong direction, roots that are too high, roots that are getting too vigorous compared to others. So it'll be fun root pruning this. Getting it all back in balance, trying to improve it with every repotting, keeping that nice radial root base. Okay, so I'm back to trying to separate the screening from the root base, which is still going to be hard. The two have become one. Yeah, this isn't going to be too easy. They've definitely become one with each other. Maybe I would have been better to have smaller screens. Maybe I'll redo the pot with smaller screens just covering the holes. Maybe this is a bad idea to use one big screen on the bottom. The tree just kind of grips it and becomes very difficult to separate. Whereas if they're just little small screens, you could peel them off and you wouldn't upset too much of the other roots. But this, it's like every root's attached to it. Yeah. Okay, well, I've learned something, you know. I'm not going to use this technique anymore. One large screen is not a good idea. With most of my trees it works well, but not this one. It's really, the roots have really grown through the screen. I'm glad I didn't leave this another year. It would have been embedded into the screening even more. And this is the first tree. I've done lots of trees with one-piece screenings on the bottom. Ficus, everything. But this is the first time that the roots have really grown into the screening like this. And maybe it's because they have such fine roots. So I'm trying to pull out the ones I can, which does involve ripping a lot of them. I mean, there's just no way to separate it any other way. They're just like sewn right through the screening. You can see that. They're just, and you know, quite far away from the center of the tree, there's some large roots out here that have grown through the screening, which I'm gonna have to cut away. I just can't pull them out. They're just too thick. Wow. I wonder if I wash this in the pond if it would help. It'd get rid of all the soil. So maybe I'll try that. I'll take it away to the pond and just swish it around in the water and come back. I'm back from washing the roots. I don't know if it helped me much, but I can see what's going on more. So I've got this really mat of roots underneath the screening, and they're just interwoven really badly. Oh, what a problem. What a problem. You know, trees are very powerful. Roots can go under foundations of buildings and lift them and break up sidewalks and roads, and yeah, they're can be pretty strong. Okay, I've just got to prune away. That's all I can do. I've got to prune away. If I rip them out of the screen, it's just going to leave bad cuts on the roots, which could cause, you know, root rotting or something. So I've got to make clean cuts with the shears and just try and separate the tree. I have never encountered such a thing in my life. So I'll definitely redo that pot. I'll take out that one large drainage screen I put in and just put in some little ones, because I don't want this to happen again. And I don't think the roots will grip the clay very well. I've had the odd ficus where the roots kind of almost attach themselves to the clay, but they separate fairly easily. This is just unbelievable. It's like really just grown into it. Wow. And I guess I could leave the screen there and repot it with it, always as part of the root base, but I don't want to do that. I want to correct my mistake. Well, one thing's for sure, the roots really grew well in the pot, so I have no problem with either the soil or the rate of growth. I mean, this is 2 years. It's a lot of root growth for 2 years. And not only do they grow down through the screen, they grow back up. It's almost like they're sewn into the screen. It's unbelievable. There's roots that come up through the screen and down through the screen, and thick ones too. Must have loved growing against that clay surface. I think they'll like the new pot. I'll try raking all the fine roots off the bottom here. Just too bad. I would have liked to keep these fine roots. I'll just keep cutting from the bottom, all these thick roots, and get this screen removed. I've got the root system cleaned and washed and ready for root pruning. That was quite a lesson I learned. I can't believe it grew into the screen like that badly. Maybe it's just a Serissa, because I've never had a problem doing that technique before. So I did learn something. I'll never make that mistake again with any tree. So I'll begin the root pruning now. I've got a lot of really good roots to work with here. Just beautiful. I'm going to start, there's a root kind of high sticking up here out of the soil. I'm going to trim that off. Okay, here I go. Prune it off flush, like that. So that comes out. I want to raise it a little higher in the pot to show off some of these fancy roots. I do that every time I repot it. No point having all these fancy roots if you don't show them off. Okay, so I'm going around the tree looking, for roots that stick out above the soil plane. Bit of a stump of a root here I can take off, like that. I'm even thinking, so where's the front of the tree? The front of the tree is somewhere here. I've got a root here. It kind of comes up and there's some good roots below it. I think it's too high. It would stop me raising it because this part of the root kind of goes parallel to the soil or slightly raises out. So that's got to come off. So here I go. Wow, that was a big chop. Taking that root off there. But I do have some really nice roots below it. So I think that was a good decision. I've got a root here that's kind of growing strange. It kind of comes up from the bottom here. Get rid of that. Another one that grows strange direction here. I'll get rid of that one. So that's looking much better on that side. I think you can see everything flows into the soil a little better now. I have a root out here that kind of sticks up. It starts from down lower, comes up, and then back down. I think I've got to get rid of that too. It's a nice root, really nice, lots of character, but it's just too high unless, I can reposition it somehow, which is always worth a try. Even if it breaks off, at least you tried. There's something going on. I've got to get rid of some crossing roots in order to be able to lower it. Okay, so I positioned it under another root. There's a crossing root I'll remove here and one here. I know you can't see that, but trust me, I did it. So that helped this area. This root still does stick up quite high. Even this one is kind of a bit bulbous to the surface. Well, this one has a root that kind of crosses all the others. It grows a strange direction. I'll get rid of that. Like that. lot of roots that were embedded in that mesh that just have to come out. I think the tree will be okay. There's plenty of roots here to keep it growing and alive. I don't think it's a problem. Let's, there's a lot of long roots here. I've got one sticking up out of the soil here. I'll get rid of that. Like that. That root also, it has a top one and then another one underneath. I'm going to remove the top one. It's too high. Like that. That looks much better. Then I have a twisty one I can shorten here, like that. These two roots kind of cross each other here. They're not the worst in the world, but they're certainly not good. Let me have a look. So they're kind of out the back. Just pruning off some few roots like this one goes straight down. Get rid of that. I'm looking for nice flowing roots. You know, they don't have to be straight or anything. They can twist around, but they have to flow. I don't want to generate an ugly looking root base. Okay. So if I go around, this root is quite high. There's not a lot I can do about it, other than I can remove some of these upper roots from here, the finer ones, so they don't get thicker and develop into... Okay, there's roots sticking up here. I don't know why it's sticking up here. It's just out of position, yeah. So I've got this section as low as I can get it. I guess I could prune this one off too. There. Maybe these ones, so they don't develop into roots higher up. There. There is a root going straight down from here. I kind of like, if you look at this root, it divides into a Y, and this part is quite nice and flowing. This part isn't so nice. It's almost bulbous and ugly. I've got some nicer roots on this side, so I could remove that entirely. And I think I will. So here goes. This is a big root cut, but it's got to be done. Like that. Taking that bulbous section out. It looks much better for it. I've got to clean that cut up so it heals really nice. Because I'm sure that will be above the soil line. Maybe not now, but someday it will. Okay, everything's okay with the chickens. Just we had a skunk wandering around the yard. And skunks will eat chickens. Okay, that root is cleaned up about as good as I can get it. Major cut there, but I think worth it. Now, I've got a lot of roots going funny directions here. Kind of turning back and twisting through themselves. So I'll move this one off the bottom or shorten it a bit. Shorten this one. Like that. There's one that kind of grows up here. There's this few here that, you know, instead of flowing down into the soil, they kind of go down to the soil and they come up to soil level again. These roots here. A problem, especially if I want to raise the tree someday, they'll be sticking up out of the soil. Oh dear. It's just these Serissas, they're wild, these root systems. I was going to tuck that one root under, but I think I'm going to remove it. It's just too crowded in this section. There. That is rooted nicely. Now the only other one I can think of removing is this one. It's way too high. Even there's like a vein that flows down here, and this doesn't suit it. It just sticks up out of the soil. I think I have to remove that. It's around the back of the tree too. You don't really see it, so I am going to remove it. So it's this root here. It just doesn't flow nicely. So here I go. Another big root cut. Like that. That was a good cut. Nice and flush. So now I think you can see the roots kind of flow down more. This one sticks up a bit. The rest are pretty good now. That is definitely my worst root. Plus, there's one here that kind of sticks up out of the soil. I'll get rid of that. Like that. Yeah, so this one over here is my worst root now. Could I remove it? Let me have a look. Seems to be the theme of today's video is, oh, I just broke off that little branch accidentally. I was watching for it and then, oh well. I think it was time that came off anyway. It was starting to look kind of funny. Yeah, I think I'm going to remove the remains of that stub. It was starting to bother me and I was wondering, should I take it off? Well, the decision's been made for me, so I'm just going to break it off. Like that. It was a live branch and then it died. Now, do I like it better without the stub? I do. It flows nicer. The stub was okay too, but it was starting to bother me. I was actually going to mention that should I remove that? And, well, the decision's been made. I'm checking my soil line, so I'm holding my shears at what could be the possible new soil line, raising the tree up, and it's not bad. It tapers slightly. I think if I remove this section going up here, I'll do that, like that. The rest kind of goes down into the soil. I'll just cut it off here so I can get it kind of lowered into the soil a bit. It doesn't flow the greatest. Oh dear. Do I get rid of it? I think I get rid of it. Yeah. Okay, so off it comes. And it is gone. So how does that look now? Does that look better? I think you're somewhere in the front of the tree. A lot of root work. A lot of root work. I'm going to start underneath the tree. I'm looking for roots that are growing in towards the center. Any roots that are going straight down will get pruned off shorter. I've already done a lot of that by removing that screen. Getting the root base nice and flat on the bottom with good clean cuts. And you can't ask for more than that. I think that's pretty good on the bottom. Like, I don't want to take everything off. I think I'm done. I'm just going to look at the really long roots now, like these, just prune them back a bit, balance the root system, making it a little more compact. And that'll be it. There will be more root work coming in the future. There always is. There's a little bit of screen left here. There, got that out. Yeah, there's a couple of roots here that are a little high, but I think that'll have to do. Okay, I am ready to plant the tree. So I've got to remove that old soil. I don't want to make that mistake with the screen again. That was just heartbreaking and horrible. It was just unbelievable. So let me remove that base layer of soil. I'll cut some little screens and we'll try that approach. I'll place the tree in a bucket of water just to keep the roots nice and moist while I'm getting the pot ready, like that. So all the soil can go back in the bin, and out comes this drainage screen. Oh, so glad I didn't do that again. So I'll just cut little pieces for around the holes. That way they can be easily cut away from the roots. My drainage screens are in place. I can put my base layer of soil back in. All right, I think my base layer of soil is all in place there. It's time to try the tree out in the pot for the very first time. Find the front of the tree, which I think is somewhere about there. Position the tree somewhere in the pot. See what it looks like. Here's the front view, but the sun is kind of getting low in the sky, so I got to move the tree more into the corner so I can get a better view of it. Here's a first look at the tree in the pot. Now, I haven't positioned it yet. I'm just having a general look at it. The pot does look a little big for the tree. However, like I said, I think this tree grows really fast. I think in 2-3 years it'll just be the perfect size. The height in the pot looks pretty good. I could raise it just slightly, so a bit of soil underneath. Now I've got to position the tree in the pot. Generally, there's more mass on the left side of the tree, which would generally mean you'd move it to the right to kind of balance it, but I'm not sure this time. The movement of the trunk is towards the right. Creates a bigger negative space on the left here than the right side. So you've kind of got to look at the negative space and balance that, which would indicate I'd move it towards the right. Now, the tree is not in the center, it's towards the right, but the design just looks very static. Everything's too symmetrical looking, so I don't think that was a good move necessarily. I'll try it more to the right. Now, that's not too bad. It kind of gives a landscape feel to this side of the tree. It really opens that side up. It's actually pretty nice. I could almost picture the tree raised a bit. Maybe the ground sloping slightly downwards. Kind of create a bit of asymmetry. I'll try it right to the left, but I don't think that'll work at all. No, that doesn't doesn't frame it. The negative space is just all wrong there. So definitely better to the right. Now, how far to the right is the question? Do I want it offset? By offsetting it, like I said, it gives a nice landscape to the side of the pot. I think that's better. It still gives that landscape feel. It's a little more balanced. I think that's where we plant it. Now I've also got to get the exact front of the tree. Right now you can see most of the mass of the trunk flows off towards the left. It kind of curves up and around. On this side, I don't have much weight in the heavy branches, so by rotating it, I can get some of those back branches to appear more in this view. So there you can see that heavy back branch now a little more, and it kind of balances the canopy out quite a bit better. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, I think all is good with the tree. I think it's time to plant it. Here's a view looking just a little higher up. This would probably be the, the level you'd view the tree at a show or something, kind of this height. All right, I'll put a little soil underneath the tree. I've got to raise it some more. And then I'll fill it in with more soil. All right. Now I'll twist the tree down to get it to the right height. Let's drop down to eye level so we're looking straight across the lip of the pot and see how high it is. There's a lower look. I think that root height is just perfect. All right, I'll start filling it in with soil. Very exciting. One thing before I start working the soil into the roots, I've got to check from the side view to make sure the tree is, either straight up and down or leaning slightly towards the front. So I better rotate it around and look at the side view. Okay, so I would say it could be tilted towards the front just a little bit. That this trunk line is just too vertical, too much mass at the back here. Maybe just tilting it back a little more. I think that's better. Yeah, that looks pretty balanced. Back to the front view now. Now, I think my tree has become crooked. I've got to get this side down. My canopy's on a slant. I better fix that up. Now, that is looking much better. I'll continue working the soil into the roots. I'll put it on the turntable so I can rotate it around so you can kind of, both you and I can see it from all angles really easily. Keep working that soil into the root base. And I may pile it up a little higher at first, as I usually do, to kind of keep the new roots safely in the soil, and then slowly I expose it over the next year or so. That way there's no danger of losing roots. If you plant it too high too quickly, you can get the surface roots drying out and the tree not doing well. I've got all the soil in place. The tree is nice and firm in the pot, so I'm going to give it a watering. All right, here I go with the water. Finally get to drink. I can hear that new soil sucking the water up like Rice Krispies. So again, with new soil, you need to water it several times in the first hour because the soil will just keep soaking in more and more water. So you got to keep it hydrated until the soil particles kind of become fully saturated. It'll just keep sucking up more water. So give the top of the tree a water too. Make sure I keep those leaves nice and moist. And after the watering, I'll step back and give you my first impressions of the tree paired with the new pot. What I think of it. The sun has gone down a bit, so I've got some decent lighting on the tree and the pot now for the first time. My initial impression, I really like the pot with the tree. I think it's really beautiful. It's hard to imagine it, you know, without that white perlite showing there. I think, you know, a sandy base there with some clumps of bushes will really set that scene. The pot's filled a little too much at the moment. I could, you know, reduce that soil level a bit, but again, I've got it kind of piled up high against the tree, so all those new roots that were cut in that are safely in the soil, and then I'll rake it away to expose them a little more later on. I'm looking at the size of the pot now, and I think I like it. I mean, if I were to cut off part of the pot, yeah, maybe, you know, something a little smaller would look ideal, but it is going to grow this tree. So I think it's going to grow into this pot just beautifully. I think 2 to 3 years, it's just going to look fantastic. That root base will be more exposed. That canopy will be more refined. I think it's, yeah, I think it'll be the cat's meow in a few more years' time. The shape of the pot, I'm really happy with the rectangle. I think that was a good choice not to go with the same shape as the canopy, to have that difference, the oval shaped canopy with the rectangular pot. And I get more of a landscape feel with the rectangular pot too. The color, I don't think you could get a better color to go with this tree. I don't. I think, yeah, David and Wayne just hit the glaze spot on. I mean, I think it looks beautiful. I really do. I think it's, I couldn't be happier with the pot. It's just fantastic. Yeah. And I think it's a pot that both this tree and the pot someday can go in a major exhibition. That's my goal anyway, is to have this develop enough that it goes in a major exhibition. And, you know, maybe the Toronto show. I think I'm so happy. It's beautiful. It just frames this tree perfectly, I think. I'm blown away. I can't believe, looking back here, that just 8 years ago this was a little stick in a pot with a few branches, and now 8 years later it's developed into a mature looking tree. It's got style, it's got character, it's got a beautiful pot to go with it now. Yeah, it's just going to keep getting better, this tree. So I'll clear a spot in the greenhouse for it and put it in there until it recovers fully. I'll keep it misted, nice and warm at nights, take the best care I can of it. I'll just fly in and show you a view of the tree in the pot. So there's the canopy. You can see the layered effect in it. Just slowly getting better and better. There's the pot. Beautiful color. You can see how well that color matches the trunk of the tree. It's just amazing. Yeah, I really like that. Bit of sun shining in on it at the end of the day. Yeah, so I think it's looking really good. It's always nice when you can take your tree from one level to the next, stepping it up a level. And today I think I took this tree up 3 levels with the top pruning, the root pruning, and the new pot. I think the new pot is a work of art, and it just frames this tree beautifully. The two the two merge together as one piece of art, I think, and I think it's just going to improve as the tree develops in the future. So I want to thank David, who made the pot, and Wayne, who helped fire and glaze the pot. I think it just turned out fantastic. I also want to thank Connor. I've been sick for like the last 5 days, so I've been showing Connor's backyard tour. Thank goodness I had all that footage, and I made it into a 6-part series, so while I was lying sick in bed, I could at least publish some videos each day for you guys to watch. And I hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope you enjoyed this series too. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me today in the Bonsai Zone.